Hello, everybody. My name is Terry Arndt, President of CollegeTransition Publishing. Thank you for joining our program today regarding millennials in the workplace. And I'm going to have a guest author, and I'll introduce her today in a moment. But first, before we get started, I have a few housekeeping. If you participate in our webinars before, you know we do this as a quick overview program where we do an interview. We do take questions on the screen. So on the bottom of your screen, you'll see a block. Please post any questions there. We do mute the phones just to make sure that we can go through the process smoothly, cover all the content that we have. If we don't get to the questions today, we will address those, myself and Kirrin will address those individually as we go through the program afterwards. So please feel free to put questions in there, comments, feedback. We greatly appreciate that, and we'll go from there. Oh, it looks like we do have everything set. So let me bring Kirrin on. Hey, Kirrin, how are you today?
Doing great. How are you?
I'm well, thank you. For those who are not aware, Kirrin Coleman is an expert and an author and publisher with our company, CollegeTransition Publishing, and focusing on the workplace, primarily working with our books, Backpack to Briefcase, Life After Graduation, our series Life During College, and other white papers and topics related to that millennial generation. So I appreciate you giving us the time today to talk about your white paper.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me here.
You're welcome. So this white paper, it's titled 5 Ways Millennial Interns Can Help Grow Small and Mid-Sized Businesses. Now, what's interesting about this white paper is it's a very positive aspect to the millennial, you know, and what impact they can have on a small or a mid-sized business, which is kind of interesting because all the, you know, working in this environment and going to different conferences I've been to personally, there's always this feedback from employers, HR, things like that, that usually have more of a negative connotation to millennials in the workforce. They're not prepared. They don't know how to work. They're not professional, you know, and when you bring up, hey, the importance of having internships, the first thing people usually say is like, I don't want to be a babysitter, particularly in that small, mid-sized business. So, Kirrin, what's interesting is that in your white paper, you're saying, you know, quite the opposite. You're in fact saying hey, they're going to be a benefit.
Absolutely. Yeah. And those things that get lobbed about millennials, we've heard of more different generations too. Like my generation, yours, is supposed to be the slacker generation, but clearly we're not slackers. Not everybody in the greatest generation is the greatest. So these stereotypes that are associated with a certain generation, we always have to take it for what it is, which is just a blanket statement. But sure, the stereotypes are out there. This is the generation that they're narcissistic, they're not loyal, they job hunt. They want the perks right away without having to work for those, those perks, and that they're convinced of their own greatness. Those are some of the things that the other generations say about people in the millennial generation. And but when you look closer at other traits that millennials are known for, you'll see lots of positives. And so, for instance, millennials tend to be very tech savvy, very bright. They might not be loyal to a certain job the way people in older generations are or have traditionally been, but that's because millennials, you know, they were up close watching the 2008 recession and all the things that happened with their families in that recession. And so they know that they can't count on, you know, one business maybe until they retire. So they're very flexible, which is a positive attribute.
Okay.
And,
well, I want to inject there for a second. Is like, you know, one of the things, you know, back to the negative components. So you're saying those aren't correct. I mean, there's the positives that they can offer. But do they actually have adequate work experience?
Well, it depends on, you know, which age, because when we're talking about millennials, we're talking about people from the age of about 17 now till 36. So I imagine, it depends on where they are in the workforce. I came across a study just this morning of it was a study that was conducted in 2014 of 1,000 millennials, and 30% of those millennials were already in managerial positions, which suggests to me that they are working very hard and at a high level if they're already in managerial positions at that young age. So some are up and coming just out of college and don't have the work experience or are still in college, and others are performing and have been in the workforce for a while.
Okay. All right, good. Well, the first point in your white paper, and there's 5 points that you bring up. The first point is that millennial interns are cost-effective recruitment tools. Why is that? Why are they cost-effective?
Well, so all internship programs are usually focused on recruitment. That's why any company would want to have an internship program, or at least the primary reason. It's a way to scope out new talent and to get some of the best and brightest on board early on as interns, and hopefully convert those to full-time employees if everything works out from the company's perspective and the intern's perspective. So they're a cost-effective recruitment tool because once you have an internship program in place and you bring millennial interns on, you have the opportunity to yes, invest in them by giving them some training and some mentorship. So those things do cost, but you likely have someone who's pretty talented, pretty tech savvy, very eager to learn new skills and to advance. And millennials are known for, sure, they value money and they want to be paid for their work, but they highly value things like flexibility, on-the-job training, and other kinds of opportunities that a small or mid-sized company, can really offer. And so I discovered as I was doing the research for this that you don't have to be the large company that can give your interns, $8,000 a month or something like that. You can pay them fairly, but give them some of those other benefits like training and opportunities, and that can really help with your recruitment efforts.
Yeah, it's interesting. I know personally, but my wife and I owned a retail business, and we've hired that millennial generation for a number of years. And one of the challenges when you're hiring for a new position, and granted these were part-time positions that we're hiring for, is that we're just taking their resume and the interview process and assuming hopefully they'll be a great employee for us. Whereas an internship, gives you that opportunity. Like you said, yeah, there's an investment into it, but it gives you that opportunity to test drive them, give them the chance to show, and then you get a pick of the crop of which ones you want to take on, or perhaps none. Or you might say, hey, wow, we have some great talent here that we didn't really expect, and maybe there's new positions that can exist. Do you see the same?
Yeah, exactly. And so when you bring an intern on and have a mentorship program in place, then some of the skills that they're lacking when they enter as an intern, which we surely will be lacking some skills because that's why they're an intern, you can coach them through that. Maybe some of the soft skills that they don't have, haven't had a chance to work on yet. Professionalism, whatever it is that you want to, have them contribute to your company, you can teach them how to do that.
Yeah. I want to add, recently this summer I was invited to speak at the industry conference for CPAs, American Institute of CPAs, and it was an interesting topic. I was talking about this internships and millennials and hiring practices, and it started off on a kind of a negative note where a lot of the smaller firms that were represented in the group were saying, look, it's hard to compete. It's hard to compete against some of the big accounting firms because they're giving signing bonuses, they're doing, all these different things to recruit that we can't compete with. And it was interesting because another small firm was there and saying, we're having quite the opposite effect. We don't have to offer interns or new recruits incentives or bonuses. it's how we sell ourselves to them.
Mm-hmm.
That we're, unlike a large firm where you might be pigeonholed into a small segment and do one task repetitively during your internship. With a small firm, we have the opportunity to give that person so much more range of experiences that they're not going to have. And so we sell that as a benefit. So for small and mid-sized businesses, if you know anything about millennials, is that they want experiences, right? They want to explore and try different things. And as a small, mid-sized business, this is perfect. You're a perfect fit for a millennial. So I wanted to add that. Just, I just came across, I remembered that conversation at that conference, and it really had a highlight when I was reading your white paper as well.
Yeah, that's a great point.
So on your white paper, there's another. The second point is that millennial interns particularly foster best practices. Can you describe what that means?
Sure. Well, three of the things that millennials tend to expect that might not already be in place in some organizations are collaboration, a mentorship program, and regular feedback. And millennials get a bad rap on this regular feedback thing as well. People have talked about how millennials only want to be told that they're doing a great job and they're doing such a great job, and they need that praise. But when we look at it just in terms of these three things, they're seeking collaboration, mentorship, and regular feedback. We can see that if an organization doesn't already have those in place, bringing on an internship program and responding to these needs and instituting mechanisms to give regular feedback, not just to the interns, but to the other employees who have been there, can be really powerful. I mean, that is a best practice, is giving your employees regular feedback. So whereas in some organizations now, the feedback is just, you met your goals or you didn't meet your goals, here are the new goals, and nothing. And if we think on the other extreme side, the millennials might expect something about, oh, you're doing such a great job. If an organization can get somewhere in the middle of talking to their interns as well as to their employees who have been around a while and saying, here are some specific things you're doing well. Here are some ways that we might, help grow you professionally, or whatever it is, that can be really powerful throughout the organization. Same with mentorship. Mentoring helps the mentor as well as the mentee. I mean, that's an aspect of mentorship that's often overlooked. Sure, the intern gets a lot of benefits by having an experienced person guide them through the work and help them develop their skills. But that also helps the mentor reflect on his or her own skills and, in articulating to somebody else what it is you do on a daily basis, you really reflect on that and usually improve upon it too.
Yeah.
And also collaboration, and of course a lot of organizations have all sorts of collaborative relationships within the organization. But millennials are known for being, always ready to work in the groups and, very team oriented. And so for those organizations that haven't yet benefited from that or established really strong, supportive, collaborative teams, doing that as part of an internship program can be really helpful.
Yeah. And I mean, for our audience, particularly because we're talking about small and mid-sized businesses, I can imagine, I myself a small business owner and had several small businesses. You kind of get, as an owner or the manager of the business, you kind of get tied into that component of, the daily stuff, and you just assume they know the success or the negatives that are taking place, and sometimes you forget to mention. So that's a good point, bringing up the best practices and that regular feedback, particularly for this generation of employees moving forward, is a positive. I mean, employers need to understand that from a small business all the way up to large corporations, right? You also stated in your white paper here, the other point, hiring millennial interns is a good way to grow your brand as a business. This one's interesting for me. So as a small, middle-sized, or even a larger corporation, I mean, how are they going to how are millennials interns particularly going to help grow my brand?
Right. So the larger companies like the 3Ms and the Amazons and the Facebook, their brand is out there, and the infrastructure for internships is in place, and they've got lots of money to do what they do with that. But for a small to mid-sized company, any way to get the name out there is good. So if you have an internship program, that means that you're going to be collaborating more with the local universities, or even universities, from out of state, depending on your company's situation. So that's a way of getting the name of your organization and your product out there. So if you have a strong relationship, then the university will keep hopefully helping your recruitment and tipping off their students to this great internship opportunity. Also, interns, millennial interns are likely to be pretty social media savvy. They grew up in this world of social media, and they know what to do to circulate information and to get the likes or whatever it is. So So this can get your brand out. For instance, if you have a social media intern, if you don't yet have a social media person on staff, giving a millennial intern that task of growing your social media presence can be really cool, because they're likely to know their way around those platforms, just not necessarily intuitively, but they've been working with it on their own a lot. So, and also, if your product is great or what you're doing, your interns really believe in, they'll spread the word. They share, and millennials do tend to want to work for an organization that has values that align with their own. So if you can find that happy place where they're working for you and they believe in it, what it is that you're doing, they will just spread the word, even if it's outside of the confines of their job, just by telling their friends and family what it is that you're doing.
Well, it's interesting. As you're telling it, I was reminded of a link that someone sent me, a YouTube video, and I did some research on it. It was a small HVAC company in this, about 10,000 population town in North Carolina, and this digging into the research, what they did is they had their staff of about 15 people do a parody to a current pop song. And, the brand of the company was all throughout this thing. The staff were wearing their uniforms, their shirts with their names. And, so here's someone who's 70 years old. Here's someone who's 30 years old, the office manager. Everybody was included in this funny video. It was hilarious. And I'll certainly try to find a link and send it to everybody if they're interested. But come to find out, I reached out to them and said, hey, this is interesting just from a business perspective. They got millions of likes on this thing on YouTube. And then they had a Twitter component to it where people could respond and kind of post comments back. And then they started doing more feedback, more YouTube videos of the staff reading the Twitter account responses and then making a response back. So it's a pretty hilarious component. It was an intern. It was a marketing intern that they hired from the local school. It was a community college, and they brought this person in, and the student said, yeah, I can help build your brand. And the guys read some article about social media and said, let's do it. And he said the biggest thing is yeah, we got national exposure. The news channels in North Carolina were calling them up, asking for interviews. They exposed them to a broader range than they ever wanted, but it added that personal component to their business. And when people started seeing ads about them, it made them, they kind of, start thinking about all these videos, the YouTubes, the things like that. And their business increased overnight.
Yeah.
It's funny stories like that, like you're right. I mean, I guess they can grow your brand in all kinds of different ways. So good points. Your next comment on here was about interns help the business get to know your customers. As an intern, so I'm curious, can you expand on that? What's that mean?
Right. Well, just it's a matter of demographics. Your customers either already are or they soon will be millennials. And so you want people within your organization who are tapped into the trends and the culture and can help, help you reach out to the audience on the other side. There have been, without getting too far into the current elections, there have been these moments where either one of the candidates will send out a tweet, and you can just tell, like, that's the tweet of a baby boomer who's trying to reach a certain audience. It falls flat because they're trying to be hip. They're trying to speak to millennials, but they are doing it in a way that that even the general audience can just recognize as being too forced or something like that. So you want people on your staff who can help you with that, who can help you figure out, what platforms are being used, what expressions, your audience is familiar with. What are the funny things? What are the memes that are around that people are done with or are still responding to? So it's a way to just to bring in that diversity of perspective into an organization.
Good point. Thank you.
I think within my own household, I have my intern, a teenage daughter who can tell me, that people do not use Facebook anymore. They use Instagram or whatever it is. She just keeps me appraised of what's really going on.
Yeah, true. And I coach at the local high school, and I created a Facebook account, and that's how I engage the parents. Yeah. And for Instagram and Snapchat, that's how I engaged our players, right? Yeah. It's just, so I got to manage both different social medias for a different reason. Yeah. But yeah, it's a learning lesson on staying abreast and making it seem interesting for the millennials to stay engaged. Right. Your last point, and you brought up here, is adding millennials is a great way for businesses to give back. Yeah. So to give back to who?
Well, the community as a whole. I think one of the reasons why small and mid-sized companies might not have internship programs is it's an investment. It takes time. It takes money, and it's it will benefit for all these reasons that we've talked about. But it's also a way of contributing to growing these up and coming professionals. Just as any one of us who are already in the professional workplace, we had those people in our past who took the time to give us pointers, to nurture us in some way. Building an internship program is a way of institutionalizing that in an organization and bringing in new talent, not just because it benefits the organization, which it does, and it's great, but also because that new talent, will remember, and they'll be better professionals for the experience. Yeah,
I agree. And as I mentioned, I've gone to several industry conferences talking about similar topics on the challenges with interns, new employees, things like that, professional soft skills, et cetera. And minimizing the negative components to it. There's so much more that millennials can offer as any internship or new hire can explore, and having that ability to bring them in as a small, mid-sized business. I know it's a challenge to you think you're almost babysitting, but you can't think that way. You need to walk in this positive note and welcome this internship, whoever it might be, multiples or just one, and explore, have fun with it, see what they can do to help grow your business. And I think that's kind of the gist of your white paper is, like, there's a lot of benefits, just as you mentioned today to our program, and they should highlight those instead of dwelling on the potential negatives that might come.
Absolutely. There's so much talent out there, and energy and ambition, and to poo-poo that or minimize it in any way, it doesn't make sense in any way. It doesn't make sense financially. It doesn't make sense at all. So there's a lot of strengths,
yeah,
and energy that this upcoming generation has.
yeah. And the future of your business counts on this population of consumers. So,
Absolutely.
yeah. Well, for those who have not explored some of Kirrin's writings, I encourage you to go to our website, CollegeTransitionPublishing.com. There's a tab right in the middle of the screen. It's called Free Stuff, and it's our most popular page, as you can imagine. But on there, there's a link to our white papers, and she's written a number of those that are on there, as well as some other guest authors. So I encourage you to explore, learn more about her experiences, her knowledge base in this market, not just on internships, but also as education, financial, etc. She's written on all the different topics. So I encourage you to take advantage of that. Kirrin, you and I talked before this webinar. You've written a book with me. It's called Backpack to Briefcase. Can you explain what that book is about?
Yeah, Back to Briefcase is to help guide that transition from college into the workforce. And so colleges use that for some of their senior classes, or for some of the students who are just graduating, and businesses use it as well for some of their onboarding programs. And so it goes through and teaches those people who are new professionals about soft skills, how to develop professionally, how to understand their paycheck, how to be a great employee, and how to grow professionally. And it really breaks it down into very easy to read, engaging chapters, so that a person can flip through to the health insurance chapter, or understanding the paycheck, credit, and budget chapter, and get the information that they need quickly and thoroughly. Yeah,
and I know we've introduced this book. The first edition was written almost 16 years ago, and a lot of the topics are timeless. But there's been multiple editions out since, so the topics are very relevant to today's new employee. And as Kirrin mentioned, a number of employers are using it, as well as college programs. So if you're interested, we've made arrangements to get everybody a free digital copy that they can review and explore. If there's interest in learning more, please let us know. We're happy to work with you on that. It's how we feed our families. But for now, please take advantage of the free one. So that'll be on your screen here. I also wanted to mention recently, working with some of our employers and seeing how they're implementing this book into their onboarding program on how to teach soft skills, professionalism, but also employment components. They've implemented it into a digital format into that online onboarding program that they have their interns or new hires go through. And so as a result of working with them, we've created our own online career readiness certification course. So it's leveraging the content of Backpack to Briefcase. It can be branded to your organization, small business, college, whatever it might be. And you have your interns and employees go through it. And they complete it, and they earn a certificate at the end of the program stating, hey, I'm career ready. I've completed the soft skills professionalism course. So if you're interested in that, that's an option that we'd be happy to work with you too. It's a new service. We're very excited about it. So I'll put some information on the screen as well. If you're interested in seeing a demo or get a sample of that, please let us know. Kirrin, I see there's some questions, some comments. I know we only had a small segment of time with you today. Would you mind afterwards working with me to address some of these individually?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay, great. So for everybody who participated, gave me some questions. I apologize. Just talking with Kirrin over the webinar ate up all the time, but I want to make sure we get to each of those questions. So if you have additional questions you want to post, go ahead and take advantage of that now. Post those. We'll follow up individually with you. In addition, I'll have a follow-up email with the a sample of, or excuse me, Kirrin's white paper. So you have a copy of that to reference. In addition, a copy of this webinar. So if you're interested in sharing it with your colleagues, people in your HR team that might be recruiting, onboarding team, whatever, if you see a value, hopefully you can share that with them. They can benefit from that as well. So again, Kirrin, thank you. Thank you for your time with us today.
All right. Thanks a lot.
All right, everybody. Have a wonderful day. And thank you again for participating in our webinar.